Welcome to the Sens Spotlight podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. Before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of your Ottawa Senators. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps out the show. And hit that hype button on YouTube. That helps out as well. Obviously, a really disappointing loss for the Senators last night, losing 2-1 to St. Louis. They had a lot of opportunities and wasted a bunch away. So we will get to it with Pierre McGuire once again. So it should be a fun episode. And hit it, Shane.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Sens Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson, burst of speed, gets a shot away, score! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we are joined by Pierre McGuire. Pierre, just what did you see from last night's game, which was a lot of frustration and they just missed a lot of missed opportunities?
You know, if you look at Ottawa, 4 of the last 5 games, they've lost them. Alex, it's nice to visit with you. But the biggest thing to me is unless you are a fan of the Swift Current Broncos or the Portland Winterhawks, you would never have seen Joel Hofer play this well. He played unbelievably well. I think the tale of the tape last night is not so much that Linus Ullmark didn't play well. I thought he played well when he had save opportunities against. He didn't have very many, only faced 20 shots. But that's probably the best I've seen Joel Hofer play since he was a junior. And I mean no disrespect. That was a phenomenal goaltending performance. And when Ottawa watches the tape, whether they watch it last night or they watch it on Sunday, here's the thing that's going to stand out. Way too many east-west plays. And because of that, Hofer got a beat on the game early, and he tracked the puck amazingly well because those east-west plays were too slow. If you watch the bang-bang plays that were created, especially off the down-low cycle, those created some momentum for Ottawa. But the east-west, where they had a lot of them, too slow.
Yeah, too slow. It's interesting, like those east-west plays, if you can get to them, a lot of times it will work. But, you know, sometimes all you need is just that north-south game in terms of just get pucks on net, get screens like Fabian Zetterlund, you know, Sanderson, Kachuk after the game were saying, you know, they didn't say this, but basically, you know, we need to be more direct. We need to throw pucks more at the net, right? And until maybe those last 2 power plays, and it was interesting, like even the goal they did score, they get a power play late in the game, and it wasn't the first unit that went over the boards. It was the second because they, you know, I don't think they're as talented as the first unit, but they were doing the right things. They were driving the net. They were throwing pucks on net. They were trying to get guys in front for tap-ins rather than being very perimeter orientated. And you could really see that in terms of how that goal went in, right? Just muddied in the fight. Zetterlund taps it in or kind of pounds it in, right? So it just like what do you take away? Like it seems like Sens Nation's maybe like the sky is falling a little bit. And the last 2 games, I thought they've been the better team. But it really feels like they're finding ways to lose. And what do you make of last night and their recent performance?
The slotting is an issue now with Pinto out. You can see it with Eller out, with Pinto out, even with Tommy out. The slotting's becoming an issue. And I'll give you an example of that. The second highest time on ice for defensemen for Ottawa last night was Jordan Spence. He had a little over 21 minutes. The number 1 ice time player for Ottawa was Jake Sanderson. He was at 31 minutes. That's a 10-minute spread from your top guy to your second guy. That is not a recipe for success. So Shabbat not being there changes all the slotting. Cleven's been playing close to 20 minutes a game. He was down around 14 minutes last night. That's a slotting issue for Tyler. It's a slotting issue for Spence. And Zub, there's no way Zub's 100%. There's no possible way. And I admire him so much for even trying to gut his way through this. I really do. Because, you know, the go-ahead goal, the 2-0 goal, that's Sanderson covering for Zub off the initial draw to start the period. and he goes from the left side to the right side to go handle the puck. He wires it. It's a great play by Buchnevich to keep the play alive, but watch what Jake does. Jake goes right over to the left side again, and that leaves Jake Neighbors wide open on the back door. That's just a time thing. That's just a slotting thing. And, people are going to say, oh, he's got to be better than that. Until you've been in his shoes, careful, because, I hear what people say on the TV, and they're not watching the replays. They're not watching the game. They're watching little snippets of the game, because Jake was actually really good last night. But there's an example of why slotting matters. Just to start the third period, and you watch that and you're like, okay, I get it.
Right. And sometimes, like, I think what you're alluding to is when a guy's playing almost too much or trying to make everything happen, right? He gets like he's almost overcompensating for Zub, and then that play happens where he's on the right side where he shouldn't be. It should be Artem Zub, right? He tries to make a play happen to kind of compensate for Zub, and then it becomes a mess and goes in the back of the net. But it's not Jake Sanderson's not doing that because he's just like willy-nilly trying to make things happen, not thinking about it. No, he's trying to kind of make up for his teammate. And when you do that, a lot of times it's not going to work out well. Right. And I think what's really, for me, it's almost like which side of the coin, which side of the pendulum are you on? I feel like they've actually played pretty good hockey the last two games, but their special teams have struggled. I thought their PK struggled again. That goal was like, man, Powell had it
right at the end. Yeah, they were 0 for 1, but that was basically a power play goal. Yes,
right. And so the good news is like they're playing well. They're dominating possession. Like most nights, their goaltender won't have a Joel Hofer. What was it? 41 save.
41 saves on 42 shots. And trust me, a lot of those were not routine saves. That's why I said, unless you were a fan of the Swift Current Broncos or the Portland Winterhawks, the two junior teams that Hofer played for, you haven't seen this in the NHL. I'm telling you right now. No
exactly. Way. So, it sucks because now you've dropped out of a playoff spot. I mean, there's still basically a 2-game winning streak or 3-game maybe from being back. It's not that insurmountable, but I think what's frustrating is that they're finding ways to lose, right? That game against New York, they have a great start. They give up 2 goals on the first 3 shots and just have 2 defensive lapses. Last night, they have all these power plays, and then St. Louis on the first power play they have basically scores, right? So it's all these little minutia of the game that's really Ottawa's really not finding a way to figure out.
My biggest concern is this week. So you got an angry New Jersey Devil team that's been shut out their last 2 games. That's not good. So they're coming in. Now, the big problem for them is no Jack Hughes. We talk about slotting with Ottawa. So take Stützle out of Ottawa's lineup and then see what happens. And right now you're struggling with them in the lineup. Take them out, see what happens. So they've got to win that game with Jersey. But then you're at Columbus, you're at Minnie, you're at Winnipeg. Okay, so you got a potential for 8 points this weekend or this week coming up. You got potential for 8. You have to take at least 5 of those 8. You have to. I'm not trying to be like scaring the fans, but because of the way teams are starting to trend. Nobody thought Boston would be where they are. Nobody thought the Islanders would be where they are. Nobody thought Pittsburgh would be where they are. Nobody thought Philly would be where they are. Like a lot of teams have jumped the queue, so to speak. This week is massive. 5 out of 8 points has to be the mark. And if they don't do that, I'm really then I'll say next week after the Winnipeg game, I'm concerned. Right now, I'm not worried about them, but this week's huge for them. Yeah,
no, it really is. It's frustrating. It feels like all season they haven't really got. It's always been stop, start, right? They have a good opening night, in Tampa Bay. Then Tkachuk gets hurt. Then they go back. Then they kind of figure it out. Then Tkachuk returns, as you alluded to. A bit of a deflation. A bit of a letdown just with him in certain lineup. They've lost 4 of their last 5 with him in the lineup. I don't think that's because Brady Tkachuk is a negative part of this team at all. But it just feels like they haven't been able to get in a rhythm. Now they've had more injuries. Zub's playing through an injury at the same time. It's just been this kind of merry-go-round of just up, down, everywhere, right? And You just want, like, for me, it's like just win 3 in a row. Get some streaks, right? You know, like, get some confidence. Just find ways to win, find ways to get points, and it sucks because the last 2 games, they should have at least got a point, and they kind of
Yeah,
empty-handed.
no, it's fair. It's fair. So this is where I find you to be so valuable, and I love working with you. Like, the Pinto thing's a big thing.
Yeah.
I don't know why there's so much silence about it, but it's a big deal. I don't know how serious the injury is, but the fact that they've gone kind of quiet on it, that's where I allude and talk to you about what are you hearing. And then the other one is we talked about it right away with Tommy. Tommy was going to be a big loss. Shabbat. I don't hear anything about Tommy. Like, you would hear more than me, but I don't hear anything. And then the other one is Eller. Now people realize Lars is a really important depth player for this team. He's and that's not a knock on Halliday. That's not a knock on Ridley Gregg. It's just Lars Eller's got a tremendous amount of experience, and he's a Stanley Cup champion. Like, there's a certain pedigree that he has that's really important. And Ottawa's missing that right now. So those 3 players being out is substantial. And I just wonder from you, because you're so good at this, why is there this kind of like almost veil of secrecy around those players?
I mean, okay, so I'll just address what we know publicly. Pinto is on IR. Travis Green says at least 2 weeks. I will say there is a past of them saying 2 weeks with this organization turning into 4. So I mean, 2 weeks minimum, right? I saw him post game just walking out. Had a little bit of a limp, but nothing like he didn't have any cast. He didn't have anything on. So, you know, again, not a doctor. I don't want to presume too much. I do wonder if it's a groin injury, just from that. And just
the way it looked.
Yeah, and the way he was walking too looked like someone with a groin injury. But then again, I'm not a doctor, and those kind of are to varying degrees. Shabbat is about 10 days away, according to Travis Green. I do think that it's an oblique injury, if I had to guess, just because of the way Travis Green described it the first time he got hurt when he said he was lunging forward, right? And that's kind of what happens a lot of time, kind of like the Drake Batherson oblique injury to begin the year. Eller, I haven't heard anything. That's just radio silence, and he's missed a couple games. He wasn't going to go on the trip. Like, he's clearly banged up too. So it's unfortunate that it feels like injuries right now are really impeding this team, right? It's across the league. It's not just
this team. It's important. That's why I allude to your expertise on this, because you're really good at this. And I'm just telling you, having been around it a lot, this cone of silence, I don't blame them. But look, we all do that when you work in a league. You're protecting your players for a reason. But this has gotten really quiet on all 3 of those guys. And let's just say most optimistically, Pinto's back in 2 weeks. So that's about 8 games. Let's just say for the sake of argument, Shabbat's out for 2 weeks more. That's 8 games. And then let's just say Eller's out for 3 more games. Let's just say, like, there's not a lot of wiggle room. That's why I'm talking about this week. And I don't know how much that's been talked about, but you look at that schedule, you got Jersey that's going to be angry coming in. You got in Columbus, and look at Dean Evans's reaction after the game Saturday in Florida, where they lost in overtime 7-6. He was angry. Then look at Minnesota. They started their road trip really well, and now all of a sudden, Minnesota, they hit the skids on their road trip. They lose in Vancouver, and then you go into Winnipeg, and they're not winning, and all of a sudden, that's not going to last.
Yeah,
this is a hard. Like, you lose those 4 games, I'm telling you right now, your season's probably over.
Yeah. It's weird. I look at this team and I kind of compare it to last year, right? And last year at this time, they basically were on that big long streak that kind of propelled them into the playoffs a little bit. Where I think they won 7 in a row or something like that.
There was a good run. You're right. There was a really good run.
And they're in a better spot than they were then. And there's so much parity in the league. Like, to get to literally, they win 2 games in a row. Actually, 2 games in a row, they're in a playoff spot again, right? So they're right there. They don't need a miraculous, 24-4 run or anything like that, right? At the same time, they need to start getting points. They need to start climbing back up the standings, especially with those injuries, right? Like it's kind of like the Kachuk thing all over again, right? You need to stay above 500 slightly. You need to collect points. You cannot fall back, right? And I think what you've alluded to, but I was thinking about this before or after the game against New York, right? With Shabbat out, with Pinto out, you know, they're probably not two of Ottawa's, three best players, but they're probably in that like sixum of like outside of Sanderson, Kachuk, and Stützle. I'd probably say Pinto and Shabbat are probably 4 and 5,
Yep.
right?
Oh,
And
yes,
in
I would
terms of
agree.
right, like you could say Batherson's a better player, or Dylan Cousins, etc. But I think Shabbat and Pinto are Ottawa's fourth and fifth most important players, right? And now you take them out, as you've alluded to, all the slotting, right? Like these are big, big losses, right? And I still like the way they're playing for the most part without those guys. At the same time, it doesn't matter. If you're not getting points, who effing cares, right? You
Yeah.
need to start. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a tough stretch, as you said. I guess how much is this on maybe a guy like Dylan Cousins right now with Pinto out? Because he's not producing at 5-on-5.
No.
He scored a couple power play goals of late, but that line hasn't really found gold yet.
He's got to drive the line. I mean, Batherson's a good player. I like Drake a lot. And I think David's had an amazing career. Perron's had an amazing career, but Dylan's got to drive the line. And he's not doing that right now, 5-on-5. He's not. And it's every facet. It's in his own zone. It's in the neutral zone on reloads. It's even off the forecheck in the offensive zone. He's got to initiate a lot more. I don't know why. It almost seems, Alex, and you would sense it better than I would. I'm watching, from 1,500 miles away. But it would seem that there's almost a trepidation to his game where he's afraid almost to be over aggressive because he doesn't want to get caught out of position. I don't know if you sense that in the rink, but watching it, that's kind of what I'm seeing.
I think it's one of those guys where, as a big man myself, but they don't like to be big, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, no,
Like he's a 6'3", 6'4" guy, but and he throws his body around a little bit, but he's not imposing. I don't think the physicality, the kind of grab it. Like look at Brady. When you watch him play, he loves being big, right? He loves being the biggest guy that can throw guys. Like last night, he was unbelievable.
I agree.
I thought he had his best game as a Senator coming back from the injury.
I think he was outstanding.
He was outstanding. He could have had 5 points last night if things kind of bounced his way, right? But you see the way he plays, and obviously he's a bit bigger than, or he's significantly bigger than Cousins, but Cousins is not a small guy, right? And I just find his game, it's like there's that 20% missing, right? He has all the tools. He can skate, he can shoot, he can make plays, he has good hands, but it's almost like putting the puzzle pieces together is really a challenge for him. And I don't know, Norris is back, and I was thinking about it. In my opinion, if they're both healthy, I'd rather have Josh Norris on my team. At the same time, Josh Norris, we all know his injury history, and we hope he's not injured again. But I think that's the area right now that, if Dylan Cousins plays well without Pinto, I feel pretty good about this team for the Sens.
Yeah.
If he's still kind of in that here and there kind of play, the Senators are in a bit of trouble.
There were two things that struck me about that deal. You just brought it up. I wasn't even going to think about it until you brought it up. And then I was like, yeah, I see what he's saying. Josh was obviously hurt, had a long history of injury, and I think that scared the management group and the ownership group. And this is for the fans, all those contracts, by the way, let's just say his career ends, those contracts are all insured. So that's not any out-of-pocket loss for the organizations, just so everybody gets it. It's not like they were being cheap about it. I just want everybody to know that. But here's where I was a bit concerned. Last year, the team was up, they were down, they were right. Yeah, I think you would agree. They were a roller coaster riding. I think they traded Josh for another reason besides the injuries. I think they wanted it was a comfy, cozy environment. He was part of the gang, and I think they wanted to scare their guys straight. And they said, we're going to shake the tree. And so they had to decide, who's more valuable to us? Is it Brady? Is it Timmy? Is it Josh? Or is it Drake? And on the back end, is it Jake or is it Thomas? So I think they've had this internal, and I don't know this. I'm telling you how I've been part of these things. They did this probably exercise evaluating who would get the most attention if they got traded. Well, obviously, if you traded Brady, it'd be huge. If you traded Jake, it would be – so you're not moving those guys. They're franchise players. But who's next in line that could get everybody's attention? And I think if you did a tail of the tape, it would be Josh Norris.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced to this day that deal was done not so much for long-term vision. I think it was for short-term. We need to get these guys focused. It's got to be less of a country club, and we got to tell them we're serious. And I think that's one of the reasons why he got traded.
I think I agree with you. I think it's both, right? I think it all came – I think that's why they wanted to trade him was – I mean, I don't have it up. We're doing this live in the moment. But the Senators were a good team with Josh Norris in the lineup last year.
Yes,
The thing is, he was just always hurt, right? I remember they had a 5-game winning streak. They beat Minnesota handily. He got hurt late in that game, and then they lost 5 in a row with him out of the lineup, right? And then Pinto, right? And Pinto's had his injury problems, and now he's injured again, right? Like, and for all of Dylan Cousins' warts as a player, and he's still a pretty good player,
Good.
right? He doesn't miss games.
No, but he's not. I think you would agree with me. He's not a better player than Josh Norris.
No, I don't think so. I'd rather have, and just defensively too, like Norris is such a good defensive centerman at the same time. To kind of wrap around this point, I do think that what you're saying about, hey, this can't just be country club. We can't just be, cozy, comfortable in our spots. If, whatever, right? I think there was a little bit of that malaise from the Dorian era and just everything.
I agree. Yeah.
And I think that was part of the calculus. I completely agree with you, Pierre. I think also they looked at it and said, we need a center to play consistently. And if we get Cousins out of Buffalo, maybe he can turn into Sam Reinhart. I haven't seen that yet. But I do think that played as part of it. The other thing that I'm curious to get your take on, it seems like Tim Stützle, since Tkachuk's come back, has been pressing. It just feels he's trying to do it all again. And it's weird that you'd think it'd be the opposite with Tkachuk back in the lineup.
I'm going to back your point up on that. This is for the fans because I was thinking the same thing when I was watching the game last night, and then I did another review early this morning before we did this. Watch the mini 2-on-1 he has with Brady at the start of the game. And rather than move the puck immediately, and you tell your players all the time, if you're on a 2-on-1, you got to move the puck by the blue line or just past. You won't be able to do it later in the 2-on-1. Timmy thought about it, and he says, nope, I'm not doing it because I don't want to turn it over because I might get yelled at. I could tell. I could see what he was thinking. So he goes from his right to the left, and Brady keeps driving the net, and then he puts it right into Hofer. That's the east-west stuff we were talking about before. Hofer made a good read, but watch his reaction on tape when they cut to him. It's to your point. You nailed that. He's pressing.
Yeah.
And he probably thought, darn it, I should have moved that to Brady right away. But he knew that if he tried a second time a little later in the sequence, it was going to get picked off by the defense, and then he would have been in trouble. When he gets to the bench, he's going to get in trouble.
Yeah. No. And even like that play at the end of the game, he gets the puck in front of Hofer and tries to swoop it around rather than just
7 seconds left,
backhand.
5 seconds left, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, oh man.
I think for Stützle, it's like a blessing and a curse, right? You want your best player to want to freaking want it, right? To want to be like, we are like, I'm just going to throw myself at everything just to win, right? And I think that's Tim Stützle. I never really. He had a couple bad back checks, but for the most part, he gives you 100%. He's not.
Oh man.
Yeah. Right.
He cares. I'm just for the.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I've been in the bunker with that kid. He cares. He cares a lot.
Yeah. This isn't Toronto where we question star players for their effort, right? Like it's not the case. At the same time, sometimes you want to just relax. Like you're okay. Like just like a little, like almost becoming. Not trying to force it, just trying to just a little bit of serenity, I guess would maybe be the right way to say it in terms of just like, okay, like try to win, but like don't just kind of be too tunnel vision, right? I think sometimes he kind of tries to make everything happen himself rather than kind of just letting the game play out and trying to win, right? And how many times did you feel like last night, as good as he was, that he held on to the puck too long, trying to make a play rather than making the simple play?
That's what we're talking about. And that it was to back your point up right out of the gate, and you're like, oh man, Timmy, come on, man, just make a hard play. That's why my number one point coming into this to you and for the fans is, if I'm Travis and I'm watching that tape either last night or this morning, I'm looking at all the East-West stuff, I'm saying that's out of our game plan. Like we're playing in New Jersey and we are going in straight lines. We're not deviating. We're going in straight lines to the net. Everything's going to be directed at the net. We're all going to meet at the net. There's going to be chaos in front of the net. Everything's got to be stressed at the net, chaos at the net, strong sticks at the net, pucks to the net, that's your messaging. Because right now it's going from wing to wing or center to wing. It's too big a gap and it's too slow.
Yeah.
And it's highly predictable. If you're the goalie, like Hofer, I give the kid credit. That's as well as I've seen Hofer play ever in the NHL. And he deserves everything because he played well. Based on, if you watch what Binnington's been doing the last little while for St. Louis, and then you watch Hofer last night, you're like, okay, they're going into Montreal tonight. I wonder if Hofer's going to get the game. I'm sure he won't, but you know what I mean? Like, he planted a seed of doubt in the coach's mind, had to, because he played really well.
Yeah, I know. But as like some of the players said, they also made it easy for him at the same time.
Well, that's why that East-West, that's what we're talking about. Those are easy reads for the goalie once he's sensing that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what happened.
Like the Sens, it was the first time they had 30 shots. Shout out to Murray Pam, who found this out. I don't want to steal his research, but it was the first time the Senators had over 30 shots since October.
Wow.
Obviously, they had 40. Wow. Do you feel like, I think we talked about this before, but if you look at the Senators, they're one of the best teams at suppressing chances from the opponents. They're also one of the worst at creating at 5-on-5. How worried are you about this low event game? Like, is it the right way that they're playing for the most part? And do you worry about their ability to score as a team that scored 3 goals in the last 2 games?
I think they have to play that way because they're so short on the back end. And that's not a knock at any of the players that are there. They're just, if you look at the roster, and let's say you measure it up to, I don't know, pick one of the top teams in the league. Let's pick Florida when they're healthy. Like, how many guys from the Senators besides Jake and Tommy could actually play on Florida's top 6 when they're all healthy? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to be me. I'm just pointing it out. So you look at that and you say, okay, how do we make this better? And I think for the coaching staff, what they're doing is they're trying to, insulate that defense. And now without Tommy in there and Zub clearly not at 100%. That's why I brought up the time on ice. You have Jake at 31 and you got Spence at 21, and then everybody else is by 14 or 15 minutes. Like, that's not tenable. Like, that cannot last. It just won't. Jake won't survive. And I'm not going to keep bringing it up, but I need to on this point. Jake's going to the Olympics. Brady's going to the Olympics. Timmy's going to the Olympics. Montampalo's probably going to the Olympics for Finland.
He's played well.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you got guys going to the Olympics, and I got a little bit of Olympic experience. That's a hard thing to bounce back from. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
And when it's in a different time zone, like it's going to be, you watch, there's a major adjustment for those guys when they come back. So you can't, this week is massive. I'm not trying
I completely agree. I felt like last night was a must win and they lost. Oh, not a must win, but like
it was an important way. They had to get points last night. Whether you get 1 or 2, you had to get points.
Exactly. And they did, right? And it's another missed opportunity. It really feels like they've had since that St. Louis game in St. Louis, I really felt that had a really bad taste, just the way they fell apart in that game.
Yeah.
And they're, they should have got points in that game. They should have got points against the Rangers. They should have got points against St. Louis last night. And now they're 0 for 6 in those games when they probably should have at least been 3 or 4 for 6, right?
Yep.
and look at where they'd be in the playoff. Anyways, we don't have to rehash it again.
Now's a time where leadership, and I don't mean the coaches, and I don't mean Steve or Dave Poulin or anybody else in the front office. This is when Brady and Jake need to take charge and say, okay, fellas, this is where we are, and we're about to have this week, which is 1 home game and 3 road games, and we got to start putting points in the bank. And
Yeah.
I know unless you've been in the room, you don't get it, but I'm just telling you, peer pressure matters a lot. If the players are policing the room, the message is a lot more forceful than if the coach has to do it every day. And you got guys now that are mature leaders. Like Brady's a mature leader. I can't say he was a mature leader when I was there 4 years ago. It was a little too soon, and that's why I thought it was really important to bring in a veteran guy to kind of help him without stealing his thunder. Jake, same thing. I mean, now he's more mature. He's played in the 4 nations. He's been in some big events. He's a very important player for the team. He signed a big ticket. Timmy's been around a long time now. These guys got to step up and lead. They really do. It's really important right now, Alex, that those guys kind of take the bull by the horns.
And it was interesting, like post-game, like Claire Hanna of TSN asked, like Brady was visibly upset. Like, none of them like to talk to us after they lose.
Right.
But you could see how it was palpable, right? And, he said, we just can't be doing this and, blah, blah, blah. And said, we'll be fine. But you could see that he wanted to say something to his teammates, I'm sure. And it'll be interesting to see how this team reacts, right? Because basically all their bouts of resiliency this year have been without Tkachuk, right? And now it's the first time with him, right? And I mean, I think that's probably a better thing, right? I'm sure. But he probably thinks like, why is this team losing with me in the lineup? Like this shouldn't be the case. We should be thriving, right? And yes, they've had a bunch of injuries, but yeah, I think this next month, next 4 games, but this next month, like they cannot fall out of a playoff picture, right? I think they can kind of be nip and tuck nearby, but they cannot be 5 points out, 6 points out. Like they just can't fall into that trap. And they're playing all good teams. Well, I watch a lot of Winnipeg Jets. They are not a good team right now.
They're a one-line team and a 2.5 defenseman team, and without the goalie Hellebuck, they're not nearly as good. They're just not.
But for sure. So maybe 3 good teams. But either way, they're playing teams that it's not going to be like cakewalks to points. They have to play well to get it. And as you said, a lot of angry teams right now that they're playing against. So it'll be a tough task. The one bright spot that I took out from the game, and I would say I know Halliday very well because he's only been up with the team, but I've gotten to know him a little bit. Really, really likable guy. What have you just liked from him, and how much does we talked about before? Travis not playing his 4th line enough. Halliday had a career high in minutes last night.
He played almost 12 minutes last night.
What did you like from him last night?
Big. It stands out. He moves well. He's not afraid to get to the net. I like the fact they had him on that quote-unquote second power play. I thought that was good. He's not afraid with the puck. A lot of times young guys come up and they're not really comfortable handling the puck, even though they're very good players. It just takes time to get used to it. He looked pretty comfortable. I thought his dress rehearsal when they were out west was actually pretty good too. I just don't think the coach trusted him at that point.
He literally said that to me. I asked him yesterday and said, like, what have you liked from Halliday? He's like, yeah, we're just, he's gaining trust. We're just trying to, at first you don't trust him as a coach. And then,
I had a player that I can tell you I was so fond of, and he's gone on to have an amazing coaching career, John Stevens. I remember we brought Johnny up from the American Hockey League. He was a legendary player in the American League. And we brought him up, and I remember watching the first couple of games. I think we had his ice time around 8 or 9 or 10 minutes, something like that. And I was watching him like, this guy processes a game so well. Like, we got to play him more. And he never saw the American Hockey League again. He was with us. And he was so good. And he obviously brilliant hockey mind. That's why he's had such a good coaching career. But I just Halliday as a forward, I see it takes time to get the coach's trust, but I think he's got the coach's trust now.
I also think with Pinto out, having another center who can create offense. I mean, he's not the defensive player that Pinto is by no means, but just having another like real viable option that you feel like can drive play, that can find some goals, without Pinto who leads the team in goals, right? Like I they didn't have that kind of option last year in Belleville, and I think Halliday's shown himself to be a real NHL player. Like I kind of like him on the fourth line if everyone's healthy more than a Nick Cousins. I know they
Well,
different
I'm not
roles.
going to argue that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to
but
argue that at all.
but
And I
anyways,
think he'll do whatever the coach tells him.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? He's a captive audience matters a lot when you're a depth player. So if you're a depth player, be captive. Like pay attention to the messaging coming from the players and the coaching staff. Because if you do, you're going to stay. You're going to stay.
and it was interesting. I was talking to him a couple days ago, and just kind of about like he's played 6 games in the league, and he has this interesting story coming from Ohio State, late round pick, and everything. But he was saying that when they went to Quebec City, that was actually really important for him because he just got to know the guys a little bit, like he hadn't really before, right? In training camp, there's so many. You're not really like day to day with the NHLers, and he said that made him feel much more comfortable coming up to the big leagues this time. So, and he's looked it, right, as you mentioned. So that's the one thing where I'm like, okay, when Pinto, well, hopefully when everyone's healthy, but there's a player in there, and I wasn't sure about him heading into the season. It's just good to see, and I think he could be really part of Ottawa's solution in terms of finding ways to collect points the next little bit. But Pierre, before I let you go, is there anything else you kind of want to hit on before we wrap it up?
This is probably the most crucial time of the year for this team. And I think the internal leadership's got to kick in. It's not so much about athletics right now. I think athletically they're doing what the coach expects them to do. Yes, they got to finish plays. Yes, they got to do more straight line stuff. That's just messaging from the coaching staff to the players. But this is where like the grind starts, and the players manage how hard they want to grind. And that's why I have a lot of confidence going into this. So you go into Jersey's coming to you, but then you go on the road and you got to go. Columbus is hard at home. Columbus is a really hard place to play. Minnesota's become a very hard place to play. And obviously the all-Canadian matchup, Winnipeg's not an easy place to play, especially against a Canadian-based team. And Brady going in there. I mean, obviously the legacy with his father having been there, and the fans remember, like I think Winnipeg's an awesome hockey town. It reminds me a lot of Ottawa. I think Winnipeg and Ottawa are two vastly underrated hockey cities. I really do. This is where I really believe that it's an important part of the year, and the leadership's got to come from the players right now. Because I think the coaches have led well. This is up to the players.
Yeah, it's for me, it's figure out special teams. And
how much is Alfie doing with the power play?
So that's an interesting thing. I was thinking about that because, like, I believe Mike Yeo runs it, but I know Alfie has a hand in it because when I was talking to Timmy about that story I wrote about changing the stick tape and everything, he was saying how Alfie wanted me on the right side a little bit more, and he felt like it was a better spot for me, and it sounded like Alfie had kind of convinced or tried to get Stützle much more comfortable with that position. So he's clearly part of it. I don't think he's running it, but I don't know, like you would know better, like how those roles work in terms of assistant coaches.
There could be the two of them, Yo and Alfie, running it together. And I don't know who would have the final say. Like I know in Pittsburgh, Rick Kehoe ran our power play. I ran our penalty kill, and Scotty or Bob Johnson ran the bench. I ran the D, and Bob ran the forwards, or Scotty ran the forwards, and that's just how it was. The one thing I'd say is you can't keep going 1 for 7, 0 for 4. That doesn't work. Like the power play's got enough weaponry. It should be capitalizing a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah, I do feel right now, if you look at the analytics, everything, the 5-on-5 plays, can always be better. But
5-on-5, they're fine. 5-on-5,
they're fine. It's the special teams that's holding this team back right now. Both they can't have the worst penalty kill in the league, and they can't go 1 for 7. But Pierre, thanks so much for taking the time and doing this. We'll be back on Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess, after the Tuesday game. And thanks for coming on. And hopefully it'll be a better result and a bit more optimism on Wednesday for the show.
Alex, I love our chats. Thanks so much for including me. Have a great day.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.